This looks like a burnt wheel of bread. It's not. This is a black box, a time capsule from Herculaneum, pulled from the ash nearly 2,000 years ago. And it holds the secret code for how our cities work and how they break. It's called panis quadratus, 22 centimeters across, with 8 perfect wedges, not for slicing, but for a reason we'll get to. See this groove? Made by the twine that held it together in the oven. And right here, stamped into the carbon, a baker's mark. A name. A promise. A guarantee. If we listen closely, we can hear the entire city inside this loaf, the clang of donkey hooves on basalt streets, the grinding of lava stone mills turning grain to flour, the sticky sound of wet dough on a baker's hand. You can almost smell the sour-sweet breath of yeast meeting wood smoke. But then a new ingredient enters the recipe. Pumice falls like hail, ash suffocates the air, and a terrifying silence tastes like iron. The loaf doesn't burn. It mineralizes. It becomes a memory drive. It forces us to ask a critical question. If a city is a living organism, is bread its lifeblood? What incredible network of farms, ships, mills, laws, and even microbes had to work in perfect sequence just to put this single loaf on a table? And what happens when that network breaks down? To understand, we have to go back way earlier than Rome. 14,400 years ago, in a place called Shabaka 1 in northeast Jordan. Inside a tiny, ancient hearth, archaeobotanists found charred crumbs. They were made from wild einkorn and barley, thickened with marsh roots. This is key. There were no farms yet. Only foragers with stones and incredible patience. Grinding, sifting, mixing, baking, the process of making bread existed before the farms. Bread didn't start as a food. It started as a technology to make time portable, to fold a whole season's harvest into something you could carry, share, and divide. But this invention came at a cost, written directly into our bones. The tool used to grind grain, the saddle quern, demanded a kneeling body for hours upon hours. The result? Elbows thickened, knees ground down, vertebrae fused like concrete. Early millers were developing crippling osteoarthritis long before the first cities were even built. You see, the tool didn't just reshape grain. First, it reshaped us. Then, it reshaped time itself. By the 3rd millennium BCE, cities started speaking a new language, measurement. In southern Mesopotamia, clay tablets show workers being paid their daily rations in sela of barley, about a liter. Their salary wasn't money. It was bread and beer, wages you could stack, divide, and store. Suddenly, efficiency, throughput, becomes the new god of city life. And how do you serve that god? States learn the logic of the oven. In ancient Egypt, the Tomb of Tea shows us a complete assembly line, workers kneading dough, others shaping loaves, and men with long peels feeding giant dome ovens. Rome took this to a whole new level. The Annona was a colossal system designed to drag grain by ship from Egypt and Africa just to feed the capital. The Bakers' Guild, the Collegium Pastorum, wasn't just a union, it was a pillar of public peace. A baker on strike could overthrow a politician faster than a bad speech. Then, we outsourced the labor. Hear that? It's the sound of water doing the kneeling for us. At Barbegal, near Arles in France, the Romans built a monster, 16 water wheels cascading down a hill, a waterfall of flour production. 200,000 kilograms a year. The entire hillside hummed like a machine. Flour was no longer just food. It became an infrastructural fluid, the crude oil of the ancient world. At the same time, we domesticated the invisible. Leavening bread isn't just mixing flour and water. It's a treaty with an invisible world of wild yeast and lactobacilli. A sour, living culture kept in a jar and fed like a pet. These microbes do the work for us. They pre-digest starch, raise the dough, and create flavor. The baker's mind becomes a thermostat for a living, breathing software you can smell. Which brings us back to our Roman loaf. Why 8 segments? Panis quadratus is a ration wheel. Those 8 scored segments were for easy, fair division. The stamp wasn't for branding. It identified the workshop and guaranteed the weight. It was a promise, verified at a glance. This loaf isn't a meal. It's edible policy. It's a contract you can eat. And when that contract is broken, watch the pressure gauge flutter. In 301 CE, Emperor Diocletian's edict on maximum prices tried to nail down inflation. The market just laughed and sputtered. Grain shortages in Alexandria? Riots. Centuries later in France, the flour war of 1775 explodes when a deregulated market meets hungry people. History shows us again and again, bread is the needle on the civic boiler. When it goes into the red, the city explodes. So here is the pattern, the code hidden in the loaf. Bread is not a food item. It is an operating system. It works by standardizing solar energy into portable, countable units. It synchronizes entire populations to a clock. 3 critical innovations made our world possible. 1. Storage of time. Yesterday's sunlight and harvest baked into today's crust. 2. Division of trust. Stamps, measures, and guilds that let millions of strangers share risk and keep faith in the system. And 3. Domestication of the invisible. Taming microbes in a starter and taming the chaos of markets. Both are temperamental, both need daily attention, and both can go sour. The same logic that turned wild grain into city fuel now governs our electricity, our data, our attention. Standardize a flow, meter it, and ration it. That's how a city finds its rhythm, or loses it completely. Today's fingerprints on this system are made of steel. In the 19th century, industrial roller mills shear and bleach flour at incredible speeds. Then in 1961, the Chorleywood process uses oxygen and mechanical fury to make dough in minutes, killing the long ferment for a shelf-stable, predictable product. Public policy is now baked directly into the gluten. The Roman annona is now replicated with diesel trucks, fiber optics, and wheat futures traded in milliseconds. Your supermarket aisle is the Barbagal water mill scaled up to the size of continents. And in a crisis, the ancient patterns reappear. Bread lines in a pandemic. And then a sudden explosion of sourdough starters on kitchen counters, each one a tiny, personal annona as global supply chains begin to fail. Delivery apps track our food, stamping a QR code onto the process. The baker's mark has just gone digital. The final verdict is this: our charred loaf is a diagnostic tool. It proves that cities are just ovens with very fragile thermostats. We don't just eat bread, we live inside the system it created. If we want resilient cities, we have to guard the entire choreography, from soil to ship to mill to microbe to oven to mouth, with the same obsession the Romans gave a simple baker's stamp. The past hasn't passed. In fact, it's still rising on our countertops. So here's my question for you. Every city runs on a promise, a stamp of liability. What's the most important stamped promise that keeps your city from falling apart? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this story baked into a loaf of bread fascinating, you need to see the secret history we uncovered in a single Roman coin. Click to watch that investigation next. We decode the past to understand our present every single day. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next piece of the puzzle.